Hi guys, how are you all today morning? Good morning. Today is 6th June 2023. My name is TSV Raghavan and I live in Chennai, Tamil Nadu, India. This is my spiritual vlog on YouTube. Haribol TRSV Nectar NECTAR Nectar. In this particular vlog, in all my previous videos, we have been discussing about the knowledge and information that we have gleaned through the study of spiritual books, scriptures, contemplation on the material universe, and meditation on the spiritual universe. This particular video in this vlog is no exception to that rule. In fact, it is a mere continuation of what we have been doing in all my previous videos. Kindly subscribe to this vlog and press the bell icon so that I may keep reminding you of all my previous videos. So let us talk about the topic of today. There is an English proverb: coming events cast their shadows before. There are two proverbs in Hindi in the Indian language which corresponds to this saying. They are पूत के पांव पालने में दिखते हैं. That means that the feet of the infant are visible in the cradle. In other words, you can find out or gauge about which path the feet of that infant will take in future, whether it is material or spiritual. Then there is another Hindi proverb: होनहार बिरवान के होत चीकने पात. That means that the leaves of a noble tree are very smooth. In other words, noble people have a very smooth intellect and psyche, so much so that they have a positive thinking. Now, these proverbs apart, let us begin talking about the ordinary individual living entity. The seeds of spiritualism are sown in the psyche of a living entity even when he or she is born. It is another matter that the destiny and karma of that particular living entity decides when these seeds will germinate, sprout, grow into a small plant, then grow bigger into a tree, and later become a forest. In other words, the progress of a living entity in spiritualism depends not only on the seeds of spiritualism sown in his or her psyche, but also on which time these seeds will sprout and to what extent. However, tell you that when these seeds come really into existence in this material world, in the psyche of a living entity, the nature of this particular living entity begins to change slowly, steadily, but surely. You will be surprised to know that people around in the society are far more observant and intelligent than the living entity himself or herself. People around a spiritual person can notice the fine body language and language of that particular living entity even before he or she realizes that he or she is turning spiritual from hitherto material. There are cases where spiritual people were in the beginning quite natural and they mixed with people of their kind, that is, material guys, all their life. But once the seeds of spiritualism began sprouting within them, there was a paradigm shift in their natures. These people began going inward, became contemplative, meditative, started loving their own company, and many of them started realizing that they had come into this world with a purpose in life. It was not like that of other living entities who were normal and material, who thought that being born, getting educated, getting a job, building some property, raising a family, reaching old age, and dying was the main purpose of a living entity. These people are different. They may or may not complete many of these duties successfully, yet they know that they have been sent here with a purpose in life. In short, every living entity is actually sent here to fulfill a purpose in life, but almost 90% of humanity is not aware of this. Of the other 10, some may realize that they have a purpose, but only 5 or less percent of humanity realizes what that purpose is. People who get spiritual start looking within and find it quite comfortable to be in their own company. Birds of the same feather flock together. It is indeed surprising that spiritually inclined people all over the world, either directly or indirectly, connect with each other through various means just because they think alike. They may listen to motivational talks, spiritual discourses, read spiritual books, scriptures, etc., even correspond with each other and think alike. It is a fact that a spiritually inclined person who was in the society till the seeds of spiritualism sprouted within him or her suddenly becomes a stranger when these seeds sprout. They become strangers to the very people who they were quite close to till yesterday. They may change friends, outgrow relatives, try to come out of all the hullabaloo and distraction, and may find it tedious to communicate with the very people who they used to easily communicate before. Mr. Brahmarishi Kulkarni, one very great saint, has said that even in spiritualism, once he was in Karma Yoga, and so he did many spiritual and religious deeds enthusiastically. But when he went into Dhyana Yoga, these same jobs began looking tedious to him because now his psyche had changed and he had become speculative, contemplative, and meditative from within, much to the chagrin of his own family members, who thought that he was changing for the worse, whereas it was the other way around. In fact, he was progressing spiritually and not materialistically. Same thing happens to all those who become spiritually inclined. Suddenly, their friends, relatives, near and dear ones find that the very attitude, body language, thinking, opinions, ideas, views, and talks of these spiritually inclined people change drastically and they start thinking laterally and in a tangent. They may not look eye to eye with the very same people who they used to communicate with and agree with before. This is the case even with this own person who is making this video. His own relatives were wonderstruck when this guy was not impressed with several things that interested other family members, near and dear ones. He felt like living in a mental cave of his own. Same thing happened to both male and female spiritualists. They may be living with the other people, but they are yet living in their own world. Their body may be present, but their mind is absent. Not only that, if these people are lucky enough to understand the real purpose of life, in their case, in this particular birth, these people slowly but steadily begin to focus on that purpose alone, and hence everything else, both material or otherwise, begins to lose their interest. They think only about their divine purpose. Such people begin treading the path of self realization slowly but steadily, and one day, either in this birth or in some next birth, they would indeed get self realized. Before proceeding further, let me remind you that even when person is spiritually inclined and he or she becomes self realized, that does not mean that he or she is totally liberated from this material world. This material world is very, very big. Yes, this person may not take another birth in this world in a gross body, but yet the same person may take birth in some subtle realm and haunt this material world for birth after birth for several hundreds and thousands of years. As we remember, there are three subtle bodies. A person who is self realized and who has stopped taking birth in a gross body may be born in the etheric world, the astral world, or the causal world in various shapes and sizes as a celestial being, an agent in what is known as satta in the Hindu language, as a genius, as a spirit, a holy spirit which is trying to do holy and noble things, etc. It takes time for a self realized soul to become totally liberated from this material world. Only when the soul is able to shed all the four layers of its body, being causal intelligence, astral mind, etheric senses, and gross body, does it finally get liberated and sent back to the space which it belonged to as a spirit spark. Yes, it is another matter that a soul so evolved after its sojourn in the material world is very, very different from the raw spirit spark that it was once before. Now, the same spirit spark which has turned into a soul becomes more evolved, more mellowed, more matured, and more experienced, and slowly but steadily gets qualified to be a part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This deliverance is something that we as souls should aim at as our main purpose in life. While reaching this goal, we may come across several spiritual purposes which we must try to successfully complete as assignments. then get liberated, and finally, as evolved souls, get delivered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Kindly let me know what you think of my talk on this particular matter. Please give me your own expert opinions, thoughts, ideas, and views so that I may blend everything together for the sake of this society. Before concluding, let me remind you that I am also a published author with Amazon Kindle and paperback. I write on spiritualism, fiction, and assorted subjects. Till we meet in my next video, it is good morning from TSB Raghavan.